The content, views, and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the City of Bremerton, BCAT, their officials, or their employees. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers Creative Showcase. Of course, once again, I'm Mark Miller, and I'm here with Diane Gardner, one of our long-term authors, and also a painter and other creatives. Thanks for coming here, Diane, and we're going to update what you've been doing since the last time you were here, because it's been a while. So of course, you had your original series, which I call you the Dragon Lady because you have a bunch of dragons here. But now you have a new series. So why don't you explain that?
This is a mystery series, and it takes place in 1879, Port Townsend. And it's a sort of paranormal in a way, in that it's a murder mystery. But the paranormal part is that one of the protagonists, the male protagonist, is almost killed, but he's saved by his spirit. But his spirit is severed from him during the course of the book, and they argue with each other. The spirit wants to go one way with the sentiment and their feelings. Love doesn't think, whereas he is the rational person, and so he argues with his spirit.
So he's a little bit schizophrenic.
Well, yeah, you might say that. And that does come up in the story.
So they actually start talking about that.
Yeah, he has guilty feelings about that, and he doesn't feel he's worthy of the interest of the young lady that finds him in his condition.
Oh, okay.
And but they both have to solve a mystery. Who attacked him?
Well, how badly injured was he when he was attacked?
He was pretty well injured, yeah.
I mean, stabbed, shot.
He was stabbed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And his spirit picked him up and took him to his grandfather's place.
Oh, so
his grandfather died and left him this beautiful estate that burned down before he died.
Right.
And it's like 900 acres, and the railroad is interested in this 900 acres, and everybody's interested, and that's why he got stabbed, was because they were trying to get his inheritance. So, and then her parents were murderers, and we got hung.
There you go. So Mom and Dad got hung.
Right, and so she's living with her uncle.
Yeah.
And her aunt, and she has to live down the reputation of her parents. So she's kind of in an awkward position as it is, So she meets him because they're next. His grandfather's estate is next to her uncle's.
Okay.
And so. Well,
now when you said it burnt down, is there any building left that he's living in, or is it just all?
Well, he's an architect, and so there's some ruins there.
Oh, okay.
And the story starts off with a letter from Grandpa, before he died, as a will, telling him what he's leaving him, and that not to let his mother, because he has a stepfather who treats his mother badly.
Oh, okay.
And this is her father that is talking.
Oh, okay.
So, so he leaves the place to his grandson because he knows that his grandson will take care of it, build it up. There's roses that were shipped over from England, and he knows that that's why the story is Hoarfroster Roses, because it starts off. The spirit is able to do some magic, and it takes the roses in the garden that are dead because it's wintertime, and it makes them into blooming.
Oh, okay.
And
So it's
And the girl sees that happening
Yeah.
and wonders about it, and that's what gets her, her
really
curiosity up.
curiosity.
And the reason the spirit is doing that is to make him feel better because he's wounded and
Oh,
in a bad position. So
Now this is 1879,
1879, Port Townsend,
which means that Washington is still a territory.
still a territory.
So do you talk about Washington Territory?
Absolutely, and I talk about how they wanted the railroad to come to Port Townsend. Eventually it failed.
Right.
Night Ice concerns women's suffrage.
Oh.
And so there's a woman that is the head of the women's suffrage
Yeah.
who is murdered. She falls out a window.
Well, you're killing everybody.
She falls out the window just like the ghost in Manresa Castle.
Oh, okay.
And we had to find out who, did she fall out or did she get pushed out or, what was that all
Yeah.
about? But we concern ourselves with some of the colorful history of Port Townsend.
Cool.
And all the other things that are going, the smuggling, the Chinese, and a lot of that happens. And then Wind in the Wilds pertains to the Indians
Oh, okay.
that are living on Gray's property, his grandfather's property, and the lumberyard is coming in, as it did back in those days, and trying to take the property away from the Indians, and he has to protect it.
Because
But
it's
they
his
find a
farm.
dead body and an Indian lady
You're just
running away
you're
from
killing
it.
everybody off. What
Well,
is
they're
this?
mysteries. You have to find out.
So we had this discussion earlier about this. Are these more along the lines of a whodunit type of?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for the public out there, they have a tendency of lumping what are actually crime thrillers in with mysteries. Because when I think of mysteries, I think of the old traditional Ellery Queen, Hardy Boys, all that stuff, where you tried to figure out all the way through the book who the real villain is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so you wrote like that.
Yeah.
I don't have that ability to be able to write that. If I'm going to write something, it's going to be a crime thriller. And so I'm always fascinated about people that can actually do all that detail and manage to work out that whole story so that you are questioning who the bad guy really
Yeah,
is.
well, you have to put some red herrings in there.
There we
You
go,
have to put
yeah.
some other possibilities of who might do it.
Yeah.
And then you have to figure out yourself who did it because, that's always an issue too.
Well, that's true.
Sometimes I
Character-
don't know when I start writing the book and then I go, oh, this
Yeah.
makes more sense. So
The public doesn't realize that characters come in from an alternate dimension and universe and beat us over the head, and all of a sudden it makes us change the story.
right.
And people who read the books don't understand that's what's going on half the time. So once again, people probably think we're schizophrenic, but that's okay, as long as they like to read our books. So what made you decide to do this period piece mystery series after years of writing a little bit more fantasy, I guess you'd call it high fantasy?
High fantasy,
with,
yeah.
with dragons and stuff.
Right, well, and then Ian's Realm is a portal fantasy.
Right.
Doing the high fantasies is a lot more work. And when I was doing the course of these, I've got the 3-story arc. Book 1, 2, and 3 is a complete story arc, and then I
Right.
did some spin-off novels to it. And I wanted to take a break from the intensity
Okay.
of doing a fantasy series. And this is not the first historical fiction that I've done.
Yeah.
I've done Where the Yellow Violets Grow.
Oh, okay, that's true, yeah.
Cassandra's Castle was
Yeah.
somewhat historical. I wanted to dive into some local history.
Right.
And Port Townsend has a very
Oh, yeah.
colorful history. I mean, that was not a gentle town back in the
Oh
old
no,
days.
we people in Washington State, they always think Seattle, and they forget that there was this whole different history all up and down the peninsula, and Puget Sound, which is actually the Salish Sea, that's what the Indians
Right.
called it, and of course we came along and Puget found it, so it's Puget Sound, but that's got a long history, well before the Europeans showed up. And so I think it's fascinating when you can write about that and delve into the history of the whole area.
Right.
Yeah.
And then some reviewers even called it a Western. which it is, because it's
Yeah.
Victorian times, 1879, and we had sheriffs, we had horses and wagons and that sort of thing. So yeah, there's a Western.
We forget, because we're talking about territory, that Washington was part of Oregon Territory. Well, then California became a state, and shortly thereafter, Oregon became a state. So they took the rest of Oregon Territory in the 1850s and made Washington, which included Washington, Idaho, and part of western Montana. And most people, I don't even remember them talking about it, because we had to take Washington State history when I was a kid, one semester a quarter of it. And I don't remember them really talking much about territory. They jumped from the Whitman Massacre up to, Seattle. They kind of glossed over everything in between.
Yeah, which is too bad, because there was a lot going on. They were smuggling Chinese from Canada, and then they had the wars with the Indians, and it was like a lot of interesting things going on.
Yeah, and
the railroad, and
they had the whole Indian conflict led to us signing some treaties, which the local government proceeded to break over and over and over again, until in the 1980s there was a judge called Judge Barr, who made the famous or infamous, however you want to look at it, decision about native rights when it comes to fishing and wildlife management. That the original treaties talked about the fact that the Indians would always have kind of like a final say on fisheries and some of the other wildlife. And the state of Washington had been ignoring it and trying to impose the same limits that they had on sportsmen on to the native tribes. So the native tribes got mad one day, took it to court, and Judge Barr said, yeah, you guys made these treaties back in the 1850s and 60s, you got to follow them. And so ever since then, that led to a big resurgence of the native tribes' political, I guess you'd call it political influence and stuff. And so that's why we have all these casinos today.
Right. That's fine.
I know. But so in your so getting back kind of that subject, in your third book, you're talking about the tribes and everything. So it's primarily the Suquamish or Salish people?
It's the Suquamish.
Suquamish. Yeah.
Squam tribe.
Yeah.
Right.
And so how deep do you go into the actual tribe?
Well, I talk a lot about, it shows a lot of the prejudices that were going on. And I pulled in some of the events that actually happened, like a barn burned down back then, and it gets blamed on the Native Americans.
Of course,
and because the lumber mill is trying to come in here and get the Native Americans' property, they kind of encouraged that, And so Gray and Adele, who are are now the sleuths, the amateur sleuths, want to find out, because it's his property too, and he promised his grandfather he would protect the natives that were living there.
Oh, that's cool.
And so he asked, him and Adele are attempting to solve the murder of this Indian man that was killed in the forest. And so it gets involved that way.
Are there any Pinkertons bouncing around?
Any what?
Pinkertons. Pinkerton Detective Agency.
No, I didn't do that. I didn't get that far.
I had to throw that in there.
No. And it's actually not called Port Townsend in the book. I call it Summerhill because, Port Summerhill. Simply because I don't want, these people that are very articulate historians come at me and say, oh, that didn't happen, because these are fiction, stories, fictionalized stories. I've had it happen. I've even had people, complain about my ferries in Ireland. So
you're always going to have somebody complain about what and how you write. And I always say, well, fine, then you guys go write a book, But there's these people that they can't do it, so they got to complain about and nitpick things.
Right.
And I'll have to say, unfortunately, there's a lot of quote-unquote semi-professional historians that you can't see the forest for the trees, and they fail to realize also that there's probably a lot of history that wasn't recorded.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you go back and start digging, then maybe you'll find it, but most people don't know what it, know much about it.
In any case, it makes it easier on me not to be that articulate with it, especially since I make up some of the places that, where they're living, and, I throw in some real places.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what's fascinating.
But then I have some fictionalized places.
Well, that's what the local author who does all those Hallmark shows, what's her name? Whose name escapes me, but she did the same thing. She wanted to use Port Orchard name in her books.
Right.
And
Cedar Groves.
Yeah, and she changed the name because she actually made the mistake of asking the city council. The city council was so kind of rather ignorant at the time and said, no, don't use her name. Well, had they used the name, it would have been like the Twilight series. It would have been a huge, a huge boom for tourism, because then you would have had this popular book series to drag people in. So you're going to write a fourth book?
I want to, but I want to see how the series takes off. I haven't been promoting it very much because I've mostly been doing my Kickstarters for my hardcover, leather hardcover Shonisi series.
Right.
But, and I hope to, this Christmas I'm going to the Victorian Christmas Market, and I'm going to be featuring this book there. I also have a couple other engagements. I'm going to be going to the Silverdale Christmas Market this weekend.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then Winterfest in Gig Harbor. And I'm trying to push the series to see if there's going to be some read-through. I have a lot of people that have read Hoarfrost Roses.
Oh, okay.
I'm hoping for some reviews for Night Ice and Wind in the Wilds as well.
And one thing I want to make sure that the viewing public understands, she is a painter artist, so all these covers are hers. She doesn't ask anybody else to do these excellent covers and everything. And so she could probably make a very good living doing covers for everybody out there, because most of us can barely draw stick figures. And so you see all the details. This is all her art, which is cool. And like I said, most writers don't have that ability, but Diane does.
Well, these are stock photos, but thank you.
But you played it up, but you...
Yeah, I put the font on there.
Yeah, but didn't you also
design,
tweak it a little bit?
Yeah.
But also it's your artistic eye, though.
And then this was my latest Kickstarter project. I did do it in leather, but it hasn't come yet. It's supposed to be here next week.
But that's your painting.
And these paintings.
Oh, there we go.
These are the paintings that I did for this book.
Yeah. So interior.
Yeah, and they're in color in the
interior stuff. Cool.
Yeah.
Like I said, most of us don't have that ability to do that. So if for some reason you decide that you're not going to write a fourth book, do you have any other ideas?
Well, I actually have 2 more of this series drafted.
Oh, okay. You already have the drafts out.
Right. So it's a matter of time, and it's a matter of interest.
Okay.
Because I have another fantasy story that I also am drafting right now, and I'm right in the middle of it. Mostly because I have Kickstarter backers who are following me. They've been following me from Ian's Realm.
Right.
And from Rise of the Tobian Princess.
And they
I don't want to cut them off.
No, and they want to keep the series because they want to keep reading the series.
Well, this one isn't the series, but it is a high fantasy.
Right,
so,
exactly. In other words, that kind
actually, it's a science fiction fantasy. So throwing in a little science fiction in
What's there. What's set in what period? Time period?
Well, it's a fantasy. It's its own time period.
Oh, okay.
It's not related to anything like that, but we do have 2 moons on the planet that are affecting what's going on.
It's that kind of science fiction. Okay, I get you. Yeah. And everything. But, well, I'm glad I managed to get you here today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
We haven't had you, and I know we haven't had you here for a while. and trying to get scheduling and all this other good stuff done. But like I said, I really always enjoy looking at your books because of the artistic endeavor that you put into them. Those maybe, you say those are stock photos, but they don't look like stock photos. There's a lot of people out there that when they do stock photos, they get a photo off of Getty and they just slap it.
Right, it has to be worked.
Yeah, and the problem being is that there are now bookstores like Barnes and Nobles. When they get a local author that wants them to carry their books, they will actually run those photos through a computer. And if they see that it's a stock photo used by a gazillion other people, they won't even read them. You know, that's the problem. And also, the photo should have something to do with the subject of the book. And some people don't understand that either. So I always love to see your covers because you can always tell, A, what the book's about, and then B, you do such a good job, especially when you actually use your painting. You know, it fascinates me that you can do that.
Thank you.
And everything. So, we're coming to the end of this interview. And once again, I greatly appreciate Diane coming here, and I'll shake your hand again.
Thank you very much for having me.
And she is a long-term member of Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers. And we exist as an organization for people like Diane. We try to help people get their creative endeavors out there to the general public. We don't charge dues or anything like that. We meet twice a month, the first and third Wednesdays at Denny's on Kitsap Way. It's open to all types of creatives, whether you be an author, filmmaker, painter, whatever. And eventually, if I can, I will get you here for an interview to help explain your journey into the artistic endeavors that you try. Like I said, we do meet first and third Wednesdays every month. Official meeting starts around 7 o'clock. I promise we don't bite, and we're there to actually try to help each other find venues and outlets for our artistic creations. Thanks to Bremerton Kitsap Access Television and their excellent staff here who allow us to come here and film these interviews all the time and get the word out there. Also to my publisher, Blue Forage Press, who have a film division who helps me with the editing. These shows are broadcast on both Wave Cable Astound and Comcast. It's Comcast Channel 12, Wave Cable either Channel 3 or Channel 70 if it's digital. They're starting to flip over to digital, so if you look on the schedule, you'll, depending upon if you have one of the new digital boxes, it'll show what channel it is. But the shows are broadcast every Saturday at 6 p.m. on both Comcast and Wave Cable Astound. Also, we have a separate YouTube channel page through Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers that my publisher helped set up. And just about everything we've ever filmed here should have been posted on YouTube. So if you want to get a look to see what we do and a lot of the other authors and creatives, take a look at that channel and it'll get you some idea. And also, hopefully, then you'll show up at a meeting and we can meet you. So with that, once again, I'd like to thank Diane Gardner for coming here, and everybody out there in the viewing public, have an excellent month and a productive year.